The night is breathless off the Cuban coast. The White Lion drifts through darkness, her lanterns dimmed, her decks silent except for the creak of wood and rope. The smoking pipe that usually glows beside the night watch is out, its ember drowned. Every man aboard knows the quiet may not last. Muskets, axes, and pikes gleam faintly in the hold. Below the waterline, lead plates wait, ready to patch bullet wounds in the hull should battle erupt. It is late summer, 1628. The Dutch corsairs, hunters of fortune, still chase a ghost across the Caribbean, the fabled Spanish silver fleet. For weeks, the wind itself has betrayed them. The same windless calm that has stilled their sails holds the Spanish treasure convoy somewhere out there, invisible. No one knows who drifts closer to doom, the hunters or the hunted. In the cramped quarters forward, 150 sailors sway in their hammocks. Those not on watch lie awake in the suffocating heat, dressed and armed, waiting for alarm bells. The air smells of tar, sweat, and fear. It is the 7th of September. The season of tempests has begun. Every night, clouds rise higher, heavier, the threat of a hurricane breathing just beyond sight. Dutch ships, with their broad, shallow hulls, roll more violently than most when the sea turns wild. But in calm weather, they are steady, and their gunners shoot truer. That precision, however, has meant nothing so far. 4 months at sea. 4 months of hunger, storms, and empty horizons. 4 months without a single glimpse of the glittering Spanish convoy. And still, their commander, Admiral Piet Hein, refuses to turn back. No port will shelter them here. Each day that passes is another gamble against the wrath of the Caribbean. Among the men, hope begins to rot into unease. But aboard his flagship, Amsterdam, Piet Hein allows no weakness. To his men, he is both priest and storm, a man whose gaze can freeze a quarrel and ignite courage. Hein is the most feared and most respected privateer in the service of the Dutch Republic. His mission, to seize the silver of the New World before it can fill the coffers of Spain. He is a man of iron faith. Miss morning or evening prayer 3 times, and you are flogged. Curse or gamble on his ship, and you will taste the rope's bite. Yet his crew admires him fiercely, because Hein's discipline is not cruelty. It is purpose. He fears no man, no empire, only God. In battle, he leads from the front. First to board, first to strike. He favors the boarding axe over the gentleman's sword, shares every prize fairly, and never hides behind rank. His men whisper his past in half-belief. The sailor who was once a slave, captured with his father by the Spaniards, forced for 4 years to pull the oars of a galley to the rhythm of the drum. When at last exchanged for prisoners, he tasted freedom, only to be caught again. Most of his youth vanished in Spanish chains, beneath Spanish whips. He remembers every scar, and every name. Among them, one in particular, Juan de Benavides Bazan, the Spaniard who once commanded the ship that chained him. Now, fate tightens its circle. That same Benavides commands the Silver Fleet, the treasure Hein has sworn to capture. Midnight. From the prow of the White Lion, the lookout hears voices through the dark. The captain fears collision, perhaps another Dutch ship drifting too near. He hails the unseen vessel. A voice answers back, cold and sharp. "Cake arise." What do you want? Then, chaos. Steel clashing. Shouts. Men spill from their hammocks, snatching weapons, storming the deck. Boats hit the water. The Dutch board and take the enemy ship by surprise. Moments later, a prisoner is dragged before Admiral Hein, the captain of the Nuestra Señora de la Concepción. The message is clear. They found it. They have found the Spanish Silver Fleet. For Piet Hein, this is no mere plunder. This is the lifeblood of war itself. Spain's treasure pays the mercenary armies that ravage Europe, the same armies that threaten the fragile freedom of the Dutch Republic. If Hein succeeds, he will do what few men have ever done: strike a mortal wound at the heart of an empire. This night, this storm-swept sea could change the fate of nations. For 60 years, the Dutch have fought for the right to call themselves free. Their land, low and wet, crisscrossed with canals and windmills, was once a province of the Holy Roman Empire. In the 15th century, the Habsburg dynasty claimed it as part of its sprawling inheritance. Then came Emperor Charles V, who ruled both Spain and the Netherlands, until he divided his empire in 1556. The Low Countries fell to the Spanish crown, but the Dutch refused to kneel. A decade later, rebellion ignited, not only against taxes and tyranny, but against the Inquisition itself. 7 provinces, Holland, Zeeland, Utrecht, Gelderland, Overijssel, Friesland, and Groningen, united in 1579. 2 years later, they declared themselves a new nation, the Republic of the 7 United Netherlands. Spain refused to recognize them. War followed. Only in 1609 came a truce, 12 uneasy years of fragile peace. When it ended, in 1621, the guns spoke again. The Dutch struggle soon merged with the wider conflict consuming Europe, the 30 Years' War. From the North Sea to the Caribbean, from Africa to the East Indies, the clash of faith and empire raged. It was not merely a war between nations, it was a collision of worlds. On one side, the old order of the Habsburg monarchy, steeped in aristocracy, wielding the armies of half Europe. On the other, a new force, a republic of merchants, craftsmen, and seafarers, guided by Calvinist faith and the unyielding pursuit of freedom. The republic was small, divided, and restless, but burning with energy. Its cities thrived like hives: Amsterdam, Leiden, Rotterdam. Its shipyards roared with hammer and saw. Its merchants sailed to every horizon, and its people, pragmatic, stubborn, endlessly inventive, turned war itself into business. Nowhere in Europe did so many live in cities. Dutch farmers fed them with precision and profit. The herring fleets worked like floating factories, gutting, salting, and packing their catch before they even reached port. Their barrels of fish and salt and spices spread from France to Poland. Across oceans, Dutch traders built footholds in Asia, challenged Spanish fleets in the Caribbean, even pushed into the Mediterranean. Their creed was simple: trade if you can, fight if you must. When Spain offered peace on the condition that the Dutch abandon their overseas ventures, they refused. They would not trade their horizon for chains. The war resumed, fiercer than before. To fund it, the Dutch taxed everything, from fishing boats to the spices that seasoned their food. But taxes alone could not sustain a republic locked in battle with an empire. So the merchants turned to the one thing they understood best: investment. At the Amsterdam Exchange, brokers speculated on goods not yet made or caught: fish still in the sea, grain still in the field. They traded shares in ships, in companies, in dreams. From this fever of speculation rose a new power, the Dutch West India Company. Modeled on the East India Company that had conquered the spice trade in Asia, this private enterprise set its sights on the Atlantic, the Americas, the Caribbean, and the African coast. Its pamphlets promised riches: African gold, Brazilian sugar, Mexican silver, Venezuelan salt. Even slaves, and the help of exiled Jews, would fuel its war on Spain and Portugal. Within months, the people of Leiden, Delft, and Deventer poured their savings into the venture. 7 million guilders, an astronomical sum, flowed into the company's coffers. It was war by subscription. Faith and profit fused into one. Every shareholder a believer, every ship a weapon. And among those ships sailed a name already legendary: Piet Hein. When the war reignited in 1621, Hein had every reason to stay ashore. He was a wealthy man now, a husband, a home owner in Rotterdam, a respected figure on the city council. But something within him refused peace. Perhaps it was faith, perhaps revenge, perhaps the echo of chains on a Spanish galley. In 1623 he joined the West India Company once more, this time as Vice Admiral. His orders were bold: seize colonies and cripple Spanish trade in the Atlantic. 2 years later, his fleet appeared off the Brazilian coast, 30 ships descending upon Salvador, a jewel of Portuguese Brazil. Hein led the landing boats himself. The attack was swift and merciless. Salvador fell, its defenders scattered. For a moment the Dutch flag flew over Brazil, but their triumph did not last. Within a year, Spanish and Portuguese forces retook the city, and Hein returned to the sea, battered but unbroken. In 1626, now admiral, he returned to Salvador's harbor under fire. A musket ball shattered his arm, a splinter tore his leg. Yet his ships escaped, more than 20 prizes in tow. Hein pressed on, raiding up the great rivers of South America, striking at Spanish and Portuguese traders wherever he found them. He plundered hides, sugar, tobacco, Brazil wood, and gold, and, above all, silver, the lifeblood of empire. That silver began its journey thousands of miles inland, from the mines of Mexico and the mountain of Potosi in modern Bolivia. From there, Spanish convoys carried it across the Atlantic to feed the armies and debts of Madrid. Each summer, the treasure ships gathered in Havana. Dozens of galleons, heavy with coin and jewels, formed a single convoy, the Silver Fleet. For a century it had sailed almost unchallenged. No pirate, no navy had ever taken it whole. Hein meant to be the first. He had tracked it once before, 2 years earlier. His lookouts had spotted its sails between Florida and Cuba, 40 ships glinting in the sunlight, their holds bursting with the wealth of continents. But with only 14 ships of his own, Hein had been forced to watch them pass, powerless. Now he wanted more. He demanded a fleet large enough to face the Silver Armada head-on. In The Hague, his request stirred both fear and excitement. The Republic's leaders knew the risk, but also the prize. To take the Silver Fleet was to strike at Spain's heart. So the company gave him what he asked for: 30 ships, armed to the teeth, manned by hundreds of seasoned seamen. While Hein prepared, Spain bled. Its armies marched endlessly across Europe, from Flanders to Italy, but its treasuries were empty. The same silver that had once made Spain the richest nation on earth now drained away as fast as it came. By 1627, the empire was desperate. Its fleets were worn out, its sailors unpaid, its creditors impatient. Still, one more convoy was needed, the richest yet. King Philip IV entrusted the task to a man of noble birth but dubious virtue, Don Juan de Benavides Bazan. To those who knew him, the appointment was absurd. Benavides was no seasoned commander. He was a courtier, a schemer. He bribed officials, smuggled goods for his own profit, and delayed the fleet's departure to trade with English and Dutch merchants on the side. By the time he finally set sail for Mexico, months had been lost. When he returned, his ships were so stuffed with contraband that gun decks had been converted into passenger cabins. Cannons stood useless, trapped behind walls of crates and treasure. Still, on August 8th, 1628, the great convoy left Veracruz, 40 ships from Mexico, bound for Havana to join those from Colombia before crossing the Atlantic. They carried everything: gold and silver, pearls and emeralds, sugar and tobacco, even priests and nobles bound for Spain. And above them, the flag of Don Juan de Benavides Bazan, the same man who once commanded Piet Hein's galley chains. But Benavides knew nothing of what waited for him. Rumor had it the Dutch were headed east, toward Asia or back to Brazil. Hein himself had spread those whispers, carefully, deliberately. In truth, his fleet had turned west, far from any shipping lane, slipping through the Atlantic unseen. For weeks, Hein's ships prowled the Caribbean, taking on water and fruit at lonely islands. At one stop, a barren island off the coast of Venezuela, his men slaughtered a herd of wild goats left by earlier visitors. But when they prepared to sail again, a cabin boy was missing. They searched, calling through the brush, trumpets echoing off the rocks. No answer. At last, Hein gave the order to depart. They could not afford delay. It was a mistake. The boy was found soon after, by a Spanish ship. He told them everything. The governor of Venezuela sent out warnings, and the Colombian half of the Silver Fleet remained safe in Cartagena's harbor. But Benavides, already at sea, never received the message. Meanwhile, Hein's fleet drifted between Florida and Cuba, waiting. They captured Spanish courier boats carrying letters. Letters meant to warn the treasure ships of his presence. Now Hein knew for certain. His secret was out. His enemy was near, and the man commanding them was the same who had once enslaved him. Days passed. The sea went still. No wind, no progress, only the relentless current pushing them away from Havana. Some captains urged retreat, but Hein refused. He would not surrender to silence. He ordered his men to haul with ropes, to row, to drag the ships inch by inch against the tide. They strained until their palms bled, and still the wind mocked them. By early September, the Dutch fleet lay east of Havana, near a quiet bay called Matanzas. 80 kilometers away, the Spanish Silver Fleet approached, unknowingly sailing straight into fate. At dawn on September 8th, 1628, lookouts on the Vitelleu cried out. Sails, dozens of them, rising from the horizon. The Silver Fleet. The sea came alive with orders, drums, and shouted prayers. Sailors scrambled into rigging, hauling canvas to catch the faint wind. The Spaniards tried to form up and run for Havana, but the Dutch, faster, lighter, and desperate, moved to cut them off. Hein captured several merchant ships first, laden with goods but little treasure. Then he turned toward the main body, 4 great galleons heavy with silver, and their escorts. Vice Admiral Jost Bankert circled behind to block escape. By mid-afternoon, the Spaniards were trapped between the coast and Hein's guns. Don Juan made his choice. He turned his flagship sharply toward shore, aiming for the shallow bay of Matanzas. He hoped to find refuge, or at least time to unload the silver. A captured pilot assured him he knew the way through the reefs. He did not. Moments later, Benavides' flagship, the Santa Ana Maria, struck the sand. The sound, a deep, grinding crack, carried across the bay. One by one, the other Spanish ships followed, running aground in panic. The pilot had lied or misjudged. The Silver Fleet was trapped. As night fell, chaos took hold. On deck, soldiers smashed open chests, stuffing their pockets with coins and pearls. Passengers screamed. Officers fought to flee in small boats. Some tried to light fuses to destroy the ships, but no one dared finish the job. Then, over the waves, came the glow of lanterns. Dutch boats approaching. The moon rose, silver on silver. Hein's men rowed silently, muskets ready. A voice called out in Spanish, "Surrender, and your lives will be spared." The reply was confusion, shouting, then silence. Moments later, the Spaniards threw down their arms. The Silver Fleet had fallen, almost without a fight. No battle, no blood, only the sound of waves against 1,000 chests of treasure. January 1629. The harbor of Hellevoetsluis, on the cold coast of Holland, trembles with celebration. The news has already swept through the Republic like wildfire. The Silver Fleet is ours. From every village and city, crowds pour into the streets to witness the impossible. A procession of wagons stretches for miles, hundreds of carts groaning beneath wooden chests. Each chest bears its origin branded in Spanish for the King, for His Majesty, for the College of Jesuits in Rome. Each chest tells the same story: the Catholic Empire robbed by a Protestant republic born in rebellion. The treasure is beyond imagining: silver coins by the ton, gold chalices and relics, bolts of silk, Chinese porcelain, pearls, emeralds, and jeweled crucifixes. A fortune so vast it could fund an army, or a dream. Behind the directors of the Dutch West India Company, who ride in an open carriage, glitters a wagon piled high with golden church vessels, trophies of a divine reversal. The Protestant Republic had struck at the very heart of Catholic Spain, and won. Alongside the Treasure March prisoners, 10 Jesuit priests captured near Matanzas. The crowd jeers, though the company protects them from worse. Others were not so lucky. A Portuguese inquisitor, caught by another privateer around the same time, was beheaded, his severed head sent to Madrid as a warning. In The Hague, the bells toll triumph. Cannon fire echoes across the canals. Prince Frederick Henry of Orange, Stadtholder of the United Provinces, hosts a feast for the returning heroes. At his side sits Piet Hein, the man of the hour, calm, distant, his eyes unreadable. On the table before him stands a golden goblet engraved with the royal crest of Spain and the arms of the Benavides family. It is the very cup from which he drank aboard the captured flagship, the Santa Ana Maria, a symbol of victory and unfinished vengeance. For though Hein has taken Spain's treasure, he has not taken his tormentor. Juan de Benavides Bazan has escaped. In the confusion at Matanzas, he fled into the Cuban jungle, leaving his men and his honor behind. The scale of Hein's victory is staggering. When the company accountants finish their count, the loot totals 11.5 million guilders, nearly two-thirds of the Dutch Republic's annual military budget. The economic shock ripples through Europe. King Philip IV laments the loss not only of fortune, but of face. Spain's treasury is empty, its credit shattered, its prestige wounded beyond repair. New wars ignite in Italy. Spanish generals beg for silver that will never come. For the Dutch, it is a miracle. The Republic's armies, once underfunded and outnumbered, now press forward. One by one, Spanish fortresses along the Maas and the Rhine fall. Though fortune will shift again before the war's end, Spain's supremacy is broken. The wound inflicted at Matanzas will never heal. The Dutch West India Company's stock soars. Investors double their wealth overnight. With its newfound riches, the company strengthens its hold in Brazil for a time. But in 1645, the Portuguese settlers there revolt. The Dutch are forced to retreat once more across the Atlantic. The company, drained and weary, changes its purpose. The dream of a militant trading empire gives way to the quiet profit of commerce. The age of conquest fades. The age of trade begins. By 1648, diplomacy achieves what generations of battle could not. At the Peace of Westphalia, Spain finally recognizes the sovereignty of the United Provinces. After 80 years of struggle, the Dutch Republic stands free. But Piet Hein does not live to see that day. Months after his triumphal return in 1629, he sails again, this time in the cold waters of the English Channel. Off the coast of Dover, a shot fired by Flemish privateers tears through his chest. The hero of Matanzas, the scourge of Spain, falls where he had always lived, at sea. His death is mourned across the Republic. For a nation built by sailors, Piet Hein is not just a name. He is proof that courage can rise from captivity, that faith and fire can humble an empire. In Spain, his old enemy faces his own reckoning. Juan de Benavides Bazan, the man whose greed and arrogance lost the Silver Fleet, is charged with treason. His trial drags on for 5 years. For a while, he is spared by the influence of his sister, the royal mistress of King Philip IV. But when she dies, his fate seals with her. On May 18, 1634, beneath the blazing sun of Seville's Plaza de San Francisco, Benavides is led to the scaffold. The crowd gathers, thousands strong, to watch the man who lost the treasure of empires kneel before the blade. He weeps, whispers a prayer, and silence falls as the axe descends.